This is Fam Electric Ghost doing live on the air with John Wood, entrepreneur and longtime traveler. How you doing today?
I'm good, Phantom. How are you, mate?
I'm doing all right. Want to let people know we are a featured podcast on the Newsly platform. You might see that icon up there says listen on Newsly. Later today, you will be on Newsly with an audio version of the podcast. Those of you who don't have video can use the coupon code of GHOST if you go check out newsly.me. And we're a featured podcast on that platform. I want to let people know that. Also, to let people know today is actually episode 1026 of the Family Electric Ghost podcast, tracking on Apple Podcast since 2016. And we do have your website up, www.rageheart.co. I want to let people know that that will be fully clickable when we're published on all the major platforms that we're on. And maybe you can tell folks, after a brief introduction, like what will they find at rageheart.co if they click on that?
What will they find? Well, so Rageheart is a collection of, I'd say, a collection of tools, strategies, and frameworks, a way to work with the mind, the body, a way to clear the mind. I mean, the simple way to put it is some of the customers, the clients who've come through have described it as it can silence their mind like never before. And these are people who've meditated, they've done all kinds of different things, but there's something about what I'm doing with Rageheart, but it's learning to work with the nervous system and understanding the stress response and understanding why do we have these thoughts? Why are we so anxious and depressed? And why do we have all these things? And if we learn to work with the nervous system, it's a very, very powerful way to shift those things. And it's not really about thinking about what's happened, journaling, analyzing it, gratitude lists. It's not really like meditation. It's a little bit like that. But it's just I'd say it's like a powerful new way, new for most people, to be healthier and happier, more grounded, more alive. And that's what they'll find at Rageheart.
Yeah. So maybe you can kind of give your story, your background, and how you came to find Rageheart as a method compared to meditation and other types of practices. Maybe kind of give a little bit about the audience, a little bit about tell your story and how you came to develop Rageheart.
Well, so I'm currently in Peru, but I say that because I've been traveling for a while. So 3-4 years ago, I was in Thailand, Chiang Mai, northern Thailand, about an hour north of Bangkok. I've been living there for most of, say, 6-7 years. And for a long time, I think I'd felt like something was missing. Something, life was pretty good, like I had a business, I had a girlfriend, I had good friends, like I had a pretty good life in many respects. And yet there was something that just wasn't right, something that felt off. And I couldn't really put my finger on exactly what that was. I just knew that something was missing. I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy. I wasn't satisfied. And so I was searching. And so I did a lot of the things that people do. I meditated and I've done gratitude lists and journaled, I think, more than 1 million words by this point. I've done breath work and ice baths, all kinds of different things, psychedelics, which I'm still very much into at the moment. But so I've been trying all these different things. TRE was another thing, really just looking for, I mean, at the time, I don't think I knew exactly what I was looking for. I just knew I was looking for something other, something more than what I had at the time. And right around that time, so this is the start of 2020, just as COVID is kicking off, I I was doing a lot of TRE, which stands for trauma release exercises or tension release exercises, where you learn to basically you wear out certain muscles in the body, and the body starts to shake. And if you see like animals in the wild, children do it. Like when we're really stressed, sometimes the body starts to shake as a way to let go of that stress.
Yeah, shake
And
it
so I was
off.
playing
Shake
exactly,
it off.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you can activate like an involuntary. You can, I mean, it's voluntary, I suppose, because you're doing the exercises, but then it becomes like the body just starts doing it. So I was doing a lot of that, and then I spoke to my sister around that time, and she'd been going through some different things, working with some stuff from her own childhood. And she told me that she just started seeing a somatic therapist. So somatic is the psyche we think of as the mind, our thoughts, our stories, what's in our head. And somatic points to the body, the physical, what's going on down here. Everything, well, it includes the head, but it's all the physical stuff. And so she just started seeing a somatic therapist. And the way she described the session or some of the work that she'd done with this lady, something sparked in me. I'm like, that sounds amazing. Like something, I don't know, call it divine guidance, whatever. Like there was something in me that's like, I just have to try this. This sounds amazing. So I, got off the phone with her, and I remember searching Google straight, I think really soon after that, just saying TRE, which is that shaking thing I was doing at the time, VS, somatic experiencing, which is one of the official, certifications you can do in that space. And that led me to an article, and reading this article, the way this guy described basically the disadvantages of TRE, or the disadvantages of certain practices that can in some ways force the energy or the stress that's in the system to start to come out. And he was sort of offering another way, this somatic way of learning to work with, okay, here's how the nervous system works. Here's why it's storing the stress. Like, why is it even there in the first place? So understanding we might say the theory around it, and then techniques for starting to allow that to come out in a way that's safe and less rushed. Because I think TRE can be good, but what can happen is, just some context, is we all go through life. Shit happens, right? Bad stuff, whether it's with our parents, bullies, teachers. Life is hard sometimes. And that produces emotions, thoughts, stress, we could just call it. The whole thing is just stress. It's pain, it's discomfort. And if we're not able to release that at the time, feel it and release it at the time, it sort of sticks. It sort of stays in the body. And we all know this, right? It's like when we all have triggers or buttons that if it gets triggered, someone says the wrong thing, we get, oh. And so that's this stuff that's stored. So we're all walking around with this, and TRE is a way to force is maybe, I don't know if force is the right word, but a way to sort of make a lot of it come out at once. And this guy was explaining that sometimes that's not always what the system needs. That there's a reason this stuff is buried. There's a reason it's all out of our awareness. And using an exercise to sort of like almost like dynamite, blow it up so it all just starts coming out, can actually overwhelm the system. A bit like how, if your body is like a house and there's electricity running through it, and this stress is energy, electricity. It's what allows us to run away and to fight and to do all the things we do. If we put too much energy through that system at once, it sort of blows a fuse, could burn the house down. And so the idea is that there's another way to work with this stuff instead of, say, forcing it out, to go much more gently, in a way that's very safe for the body. And so I read this article and was like, man, this just makes so much sense to me. This feels like it's like all the other shit I've been doing, but better. And off the back of that, found a course. His wife was running a course, took her course and then took another one. And I mean, within like a week or two, there's so much context here. Within a week or two, I remember thinking, really, it was like, oh, this is just like meditation. All this other stuff I've been trying to do, but better. There's a better understanding because it's grounded in, we'd say, the science of the nervous system, understanding. Instead of it just being just meditate, take a deep breath, there's like a much deeper understanding of how to help the system calm down, how to create space for these things to come out. And I mean, within a week or two, I remember feeling it was like I'd made more progress. This is
like
just an example.
like an epiphany. Like it
Yeah.
made a lot of sense. Like sometimes, I always feel that the universe brings things to you. I'm kind of this person, I'm an artist, so I believe in the muse. I kind of believe in the muse. And as an artist, I feel like you get connected and you have to be willing to listen. So sometimes things come to you, but if you have a mindset that like rejects everything that comes to you, then you don't hear it or you don't see it or you don't feel it. So sometimes if you're more of a receiver, you're willing to not have the judgment to just dismiss it. So it looked like you were ready to hear it or feel this new idea, and then based on everything you had done before, it made sense to you. It was like an epiphany. It's like, oh, this is the missing piece of the puzzle.
And it's funny, like, because so a few months before that, I'd worked with some life coaches in Thailand. We'd done a mushroom ceremony, among other things, and going into that, my intention was, I had this big page of stuff that I wanted to get out of it. But really, I think it boiled down to was purpose, passion, and profit. I wanted to find something I could do that I believed in, which to me is the purpose. Something I loved, which is the passion. And then profit would be a way to make money as well, because then it's sustainable. And these coaches turned out to be some of the most manipulative, abusive people I'd met up until that point in my life. They told me in this mushroom ceremony that I'd basically they told me in this mushroom ceremony that I'd killed 20 million people in a past life, and that now I had all these locks on my power, and it was a whole thing. And I didn't really believe it at the time, but it created doubt, right? So went into this mushroom thing with them and purpose, passion, profit, and then had this. They turned out to be horrible people, really, really manipulative. But off the back of it, what was really interesting is it's what led me to this somatic stuff, what led me down this rabbit hole of the nervous system. And then it's become like I've completely fallen in love with it because it's changed my life so much. And I've seen it in other people's lives. My like really close friend totally changed her life too. And so it's sort of funny how it all came together. But yeah, an epiphany is a good word. It's like something just arrived. I asked, and then something just arrives. It's like, this is amazing. It's changed my life. And then what Rageheart is really is, I mean, I can talk so much about all the different things that's happened, but really it's helped me so much. And yet it's no one really knows about it yet. It's around like if you get into like the therapeutic circles and stuff, but it's still on the edges, It's not like meditation, which is very mainstream.
Yeah,
And so my goal with Rageheart,
it's like a bleeding edge, like new thing that's not widely known.
Yeah, it's early. And so my goal with Rageheart is to take these tools and this new understanding of the nervous system and give it to people who really need it. Just give it to the world and try and share it with as many people as possible. Because I think it's just changed my life so much, really. And to be able to give that to other people is just, to me, is an amazing, amazing thing. So that's Rageheart. And that's sort of the story behind it.
And one of the things you like to answer, one of the questions you like to answer is like you can. I've heard people talk about meditation and say there's a lot of people that can't get their arms around it. They can't get into that kind of meditation phase. They don't feel comfortable with it. So, I'm a type of person. I like to just go. I live in New Hampshire. I'll just go walk in the pines. I'll go walk in the woods. And in the summer, you like go barefoot. And I've been a kind of a person. I live in New England because I like to go out in the mountains and the woods and walk. And I'm a musician, but like I like to clear my head by going out and doing that walk. And I feel kind of like Thoreau and a lot of the poets used to say nature's a cathedral. And I kind of get reinvigorated by that. And it gets rid of the noise. Because there's so many things today, there's so many things that kick off noise, but it seems like you found a way to get that noise out of your system, or maybe the mind sometimes can get cluttered with so many things that you don't know which thing to pick because you're too many inputs, especially in today's society with the cell phones and all the things that we get. So I'm wondering, like, you maybe could talk more about like what meditation's not, maybe the answer, and this is another way to approach things.
Well, I mean, meditation, I've, meditated 20 minutes a day for most of 10 years before I got into this stuff. I rarely meditate now because I just don't feel like I need it. But it just, I mean, so this whole, it's like where to begin? So with the nervous system, understanding that we have basically like a relaxation mode, and then we have like a get up and do shit mode. And the technical term for it is parasympathetic, is we're relaxing, we're eating food, we're talking, we're in parasympathetic right now for the most part. We're socially engaging. And then sympathetic, or that get up and go, which can be is doing some squats in the gym, going for a walk. It can be getting into a fight with someone. So we have these two modes, and they're both absolutely needed. We need both sides of it. It's not about always being chill, and it's not about always being on. It's about learning to navigate this. And so so understanding, like, when the mind's doing all kinds of different things and it's worried about different things, money and people, and all the different things in our lives that we worry about, that we often think that that's the things themselves, they're the problem. But I guess where I'm at now with it is often I think it's the issue. Sometimes there are problems to be solved, but sometimes it's just, we're just in that sympathetic state. We're in that, we call it sympathetic arousal. We're a bit activated. And if we know that, instead of worrying about stuff, we can start to go, okay, what does the system need? Well, the system needs to relax. Okay, well, how does it relax? What tells the system that it's okay to come down? It's okay to come out of that always doing stuff mode. And a big part of that is safety, right? And this is something I never heard about in meditation. No one talked about this, but it's literally just noticing, is it safe right now? So we can look around the room, we can listen and start to get a feel for, okay, if it is safe, can I just tune into that? Almost like a radio frequency. Can I tune into the elements of my environment, my life, that are telling me it's actually safe right now? And there's something about tuning, and this is just one of the first sort of techniques or tools people learn. This is what I teach people with Rageheart, is by learning to notice, and would say resource or orient to the safety, we start to give our nervous system the data. So it's not about saying I'm safe. It's about the raw data. So looking around, am I actually safe? Okay, I am. And that sensory data then says to the system, oh, I don't need to be so stressed. I don't need to be so worried. I can actually start to let go. And then the body starts to, come down. And you mentioned walking. And so like within this sort of way of working, within Rageheart, within the nervous system world, there's sort of like part of it's about getting into the body and being available for fear and shame and anger, all the different things that we're carrying. So when they can come out, but then there's also this other flip side where it's like, okay, now it's time to go for a walk. And we'll call that resourcing. We're resourcing to nature, or resourcing to a really good book or some music or painting or drawing. I play guitar. I don't paint. I don't know what you mean by as an artist, but I like to play guitar and sing. And there's all these different ways of helping that, like giving space for the system for these old stress to come up and out, and then balancing it with bringing sort of helping everything settle back down. So it's not about always being in the feeling, making time for that. It is, but then it's also about, okay, let's go play guitar. Let's go for a walk barefoot. Fantastic. And so it's this, meditation for me was always like, it depends on, meditation is such a broad word. It can mean so many different things. And there's so many different teachers of varying calibers.
Yeah.
And, but they don't talk about this, like it's just sit there, be present, breathe, watch your mind. This feels like this nervous system thing. It's similar in some ways of learning to be aware and learning to be present, but with some added, I'd say, nuance or sophistication, kind of going, okay, there's a time to feel, a time to be present with the fear or with whatever the thing is that's coming up. And then there's a time to go, like, chill out, man, like go do some fun shit. So yeah, does that answer your question?
That makes sense. I mean, I'm a creative. I'm a sound designer. I'm a music producer. I'm a synthesist.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
in my world, I use synthesizers and oscillators to create tones, which are frequencies. And I've been doing it since I was 17. I'm 56. And so I find a lot of freedom and cathartic peace for a mind from just generating what I call sound paintings.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just go into my studio, which I'm in right now, and I'll create soundscapes with oscillators and sound waves and just free form, kind of in the flow, create things like a jazz fusion type of mindset. And so that's my kind of go-to way as an artist. Like, painter might do that with a brush. A guitar player might jump on the sixth string, start doing something. I jump on my Moog or my piano and I just start playing, or I start designing sounds. And I find that art therapy, which a lot of people get into, is like there are a lot of people who don't feel they could be artists because they feel you have to be at a certain level to be an artist. And I feel you just have to give yourself permission. And I think that's part of that imposter syndrome that people have, is like, I feel the arts has a lot of power to kind of get you in line. And I'm a big believer in the muse and just going in this kind of free flow inside and outside. And that's how I solve a lot of issues with my life, as I create a lot of these sound paintings, not for any purpose to make money. If they happen to make money, they make money, but I just do it because I love music. And so it's like, sometimes if you have something you love so much, it's not, you don't stress about whether or not something you create is going to be popular and people dig it. You just do it because it's part of your process.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's funny you mentioned producing. I haven't been producing much in a while, but I went through a period in Thailand where I was making dance music. So more like, trap and not so much the atmospheric stuff, but, like big high energy stuff. And I don't do it. I haven't done it in a while. I've been doing other things, but the flow states and just, I'd have some coffee and just get into the zone and just go all day. It was so much fun. So I understand, like, music. I guess people get that with painting, with all the different things, but for me, definitely music. Lately, it's been I have an acoustic guitar and I sing, and just that, like, riffing. It's been like fucking amazing, man. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, because it's like sometimes people do it and they have a purpose. Like, but my purpose is just to free the music from inside, right?
Hmm.
So I just create without expectations about
Hmm.
how people are going to take it. I just put it down and I put it
Hmm.
out into the universe, and I don't really care because it's like it's part of my process. Since I was 17, I found the keys,
Hmm.
and I found that it really helps me work out because I
Hmm.
have a day job. I'm a software designer, very rigid structure, but there's creativity in it. There's deadlines and all kinds of stressful things. And then when I get into the music, I don't put expectations on it. I just give myself a place to be free. And I find I could go into it for hours just noodling. And
Hmm.
it just is, if you're using one part of your brain for logic and this other part for expression, it's like I find that being able to access both pieces of my soul and mindset help me a lot. And some people,
Hmm.
they find it hard to find that in their life. So they look for other things that will solve that void or fill the void. And I just think that a lot of times it's like maybe we can talk about imposter syndrome, that people don't give themselves permission to do what they love. They have
Hmm.
all these expectations of like what society puts on you and these truths that may not be truths, and you don't actually find what's make brings you happiness or brings you peace of mind because you're trying to be people pleaser or you're trying to wear a mask for somebody, but like what are you doing for your own spirit?
Hmm. Hmm. It's funny, like getting into working with the nervous system. A lot of it's about getting into the body, and so learning how to feel whatever seems to be happening in the body. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, that process of getting out of the head and into the body. But one of the interesting things about it is, like, as I did this, I went through this process. It's been amazing, but over time, it was like some things got a lot harder. And if there was like work, especially with work, if there was work that I was doing that I did not believe in, that I did not give a shit about, it became, instead of it being easier to push through, it got a lot harder. And so what's happened is, like, I think a lot of people, speaking, you're talking about people who don't give themselves permission. I wonder how much of it is to do with people aren't really feeling just how unhappy they are because they don't want to,
Mm,
they don't know how to, and so because they're not feeling what's going on down here, they don't really have this compass that's saying, hey, maybe this thing is, maybe you shouldn't be doing this kind of work. Maybe you should go do this other thing. Maybe you should go paint or play music, whatever it happens to be. And so doing this work for myself, it's like some things got a lot harder and they've sort of fallen. Some of these things have fallen away, and that can be things like, like a work I was doing. I mean, even things like alcohol. Not that I was a big drinker even when I got into this, but foods, you start to notice, the more I'm in my body, the more I start to notice how everything's affecting me and how it actually feels on a felt level. And then I start going, oh, that doesn't really feel very good. I'm not going to do that anymore. Or if I have
mm,
to do it for the time being, like work, we got to make money, I'm going to like keep doing that, keep paying my bills, but I'm going to start setting up this other thing over here, something that I really love. And so I wonder how much of music and people not doing what they want to do is like they've got to, it's like learning to feel first, and
yeah.
then that becomes a compass that shows them, hey, don't go there, let's go over here, let's go have some fun.
Well, it's hard because I think it's hard to be authentic because a lot of people don't want to feel vulnerable. And the thing about being a creative is once you put something out in the world, a lot of times it will reveal your vulnerability. And so people have been taught that I got to be tough, I got to suck it up, I got to do this, I got to do the 9 to 5, or I got to be responsible. So I can't entertain doing something that's kind of foo foo or something that's like, oh, I don't know if that's solid. But
Mm-hmm.
things that are artistic or serve the soul or serve the spirit can't always be monetized. Can't always have an apparent value. Might not be valuable today. Might take a while for it to become worthwhile to other people, but it could be very worthwhile to you. So are
Mm-hmm.
you so concerned about what the value is to others rather than the value is to your own soul? To me, music helps my soul. So I do
Mm-hmm.
it regardless of what anybody else thinks. I just do it
Mm-hmm.
because it's part of my process, like walking in the woods or working
Mhm.
out or things I need to do for my body or eating right. I'm a cancer survivor. At age
Mhm.
27, I
Mm.
survived a level 3 sarcoma. So I had to learn there are things I probably shouldn't eat. There are probably things I shouldn't do if I don't want to have it come back. So in order to stay cancer free, I've stayed in a certain lifestyle because I knew what it's like to go through a level 3 sarcoma. And so,
Mhm.
like, if you have never gone through kind of that type of crisis moment, you might not do what's necessary. But what I found is it freed me to not be scared to be vulnerable
Mhm.
because my body became vulnerable and I survived it. And I said, well, why don't I let my whole existence put myself into places like talking right now? The pre-cancer me, I was scared of public speaking. Now I've
Mhm.
done over 1,000 podcasts, so I got rid of that. So there's things that you can overcome, but you have to kind of solve your own like self doubts. And
Mhm.
nobody knows when you're ready to do that. It's like it's your own timetable. You have to figure out when you're ready to confront those fears.
Mm. Mm. I mean, you remind me of like people with like being vulnerable. We think about it as a lot of that's being like a almost like safety. Like, is it safe for me to be myself, whoever that is? Is it safe for me to like want to do this thing or that thing, or to leave this job and start a new one, to whatever it happens to be? Like a lot of it, and this is the nervous system thing too. It comes back to safety. And if we don't feel safe as it is, it's going to be very hard to push through and do something that we really want to do, or learn that thing, or share and create and put things out into the world, or just be who we are, because it's not safe. And I think a lot of this goes back to, and this is why we end up with stuff in our body, depending on how we grew up, will be with like people at school or parents, caregivers, like just the way we were raised. And we might have had like an impulse to share, to sing, to scream, to do something, to express and emote, to rage, to be afraid, or whatever it happens to be. And a lot of the time, the people around us when we're growing up, they couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Shut the hell up, or go to your room, or like. And so the message, it's like we internalize this. Okay, it's not safe to be me. It's not safe to just be who I am, because it hurts the people around me. And then so we spend our whole lives living that out until we go, no, that's just programming, basically old survival scripts, which maybe as a kid we needed to shut down certain aspects of ourselves to maintain the attachment relationship with our parents, right? So it's like when we're a kid, it's more important that our parents still love us, so we can still get fed and have a roof over our head, than it is for us to be ourselves. And so, like, at once upon a time, it was useful. Then we grow up, though, and we're like, well, it doesn't really matter. Like, if the parents, if they don't understand who we are, they don't like us as who we are, then that's okay. We're still going to survive. And so that's, a lot of this work with Rageheart is creating that safety to be yourself, whoever the hell that is, and to whatever thing you want to do. And so as more of that safety comes on board, and it's not just an idea, but a feeling in the body, then it starts to become a lot easier to do these things that for so long have been so difficult.
But like unleashing the beast, like you said, like if you're a kid in your parents' house, you're probably not really safe to unleash the beast because your father's going to say, like, no, you can't unleash the beast around here, not while I'm around. So
Exactly.
so it's like, but the problem is a lot of times you could be like 32 and you still feel like your father's there, right? And I've been around people like that, and they're not letting go. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
producer and I'll be with a musician and I know what they're capable of, and I see they're holding back, and they're like, well, it's like because they're really not free. And
Mm-hmm.
what you try to do is like I try to bring out, and when I work with an artist, like do the thing that you're most scared of doing. This is
Mm-hmm.
a safe place to do it. Don't show me that you can clone somebody else or do what you think I want. Show me who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a hard thing for people to deal with because a lot of times people don't feel free to show them the real like looking glass self. They don't want to do, they're scared to show that even themselves in the looking glass. And I was very much into Victorian poetry because they were always referring to the looking glass and say, "What's that about?" And I would
Mm-hmm.
read all the great poets like, Wordsworth and you know, Lord Byron and Blake. And I was like, what are they trying to get at? And as a songwriter, I was very much inspired by what they talked about. But even in their time, they were writing in code because they weren't given permission by their society to tell the full truth. They would talk about orgasms and hide it with an idea called little death and not really say what it was. And they would layer it, but they were still trying to get to the truth. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And you can work with that as an artist. Like, oh, I can layer things. I can have double
Mhm.
meanings. I can have all these things, but I can still express myself.
Mhm.
And so that freedom to express yourself and start to explore what could you find if you're
Mhm.
willing to kind of test the boundaries.
Mhm. It's almost like it's like where it's it's easier. Oh man, my mic. It's easier to be someone else or to be who we think we need to be or something like that. Because then if people reject us, well, it's not really us. They're just rejecting this idea we were living out. But if we show who we really are, if we really express what's on our heart, and then they reject us,
Take
that's
it personal.
exactly right.
Yeah, that's the hard
Mm.
thing. Like to be the authentic self, you know, because I was always this moment like where I was a fan of music, like Neil Young when he did his albums. Like he did this thing called the Ditch Trilogy, where he had just finished like this really beautiful work, after the gold rush and like really harmonized. And then he started doing all these songs that were like punk songs.
Hmm.
They're like really heavy, not fully, fleshed out, where kind of like his voice would crack, it would change, and he's willing to just put it on record. And then was like the Tonight's the Night is an example, and then Time Fades Away. And those records he called the Ditch Trilogy because I had hit the big time, I'd been successful, and then I wanted to see what would happen if I actually did something. And I called it the Ditch. He called it the Ditch Trilogy because he didn't really care what the A&R people were saying. I'm gonna do
Mhm.
what I want. It was just kind of ramshackle, kind of second, third take. Just put it down because that's what it is. That's the truth. And
Mhm.
don't try to fix it. Just let it be. And I was very much like into that type of recording style, which is like the
Mhm.
happy accident. Let it happen. Let it be. Don't try to perfect it. Let the art be what it is in the moment. And
Uh-huh.
a lot of people will try to tell you you shouldn't do that. You should try to do
Mhm.
100 takes until you get it perfect. Without try to make it more than what the moment is. But sometimes you lose the authenticity of the moment. And I think people do
Yeah.
that in their lives. They try to, think about every line they're going to say, and then not think about the moment that
Mhm.
they're in.
Yeah, man. I mean, I made a song like 2016 maybe, and I recorded this vocal. It was just I'm an alright singer, not amazing, but somewhat okay. And I sang the line, made the song. I was like, oh, it sounds pretty good. Let me, but it was a bit rough, like you saying. It's a bit rough. It's a bit like it's a bit off. So let me like do this properly. Let's get a proper microphone. Let's do like some really solid takes and like really nail it. And so I did that, and I guess technically it was more correct, like it's more in pitch, all that sort of stuff. But it lost the soul of it somehow. It was like, oh, like
Yeah,
I'm just the emotion's gone because now I'm just singing a line. It was really really interesting.
that's what people find is like in what we call the happy accident or the authentic self or the vulnerable self. And then today with computers and AI and all the capabilities we have, we're not willing to do like in the old days. We could just go throw something down on analog tape, and it would make it harder to fix it. I mean, not that you couldn't
Mhm.
fix it, we would go back and retake it. But today you can go into the grid and just physically fix things,
Mhm.
and it's like the worst thing that could happen to artists because
Mhm.
then they do what you just said. It's like that. They could be take three, doesn't have the best mic, actually has some like minor errors or there's no noise in the background, but it is the most authentic vision of what you were trying to say.
Mhm.
And because you could go back and make it sonically perfect without the background noise, without hitting your buckle when your belt, your buttons on your jacket hitting the guitar or whatever. But sometimes all those little things actually are okay.
Uh-huh.
And we've been told like, oh, it's not okay. We got to filter those things out, and it loses that
Mhm.
moment. And
Uh-huh.
I have to stress to so many people, it's like this. there's something about capturing a point in time moment of that
Mm,
creation that's okay to just
mhm,
let that moment be.
uh-huh. What a great metaphor for like for life. Like it becomes like the music. Absolutely, like it's a great way to approach music. But then this is a metaphor for how to be in the world. To kind of go, okay, instead of trying to do things perfect, win everything in work, in money, and relationships. It's just like that one take, that authentic. That's the goal. Not trying to do everything perfectly. It takes all the pressure off in a way. Once we get over the, what if they reject
Yeah.
me for who I am? Once we get past that, it's like a weight off. You're like, oh, I don't need to try so hard to be anything in particular. I can just be it as I am, whatever that is, and make mistakes and be gritty and be messy, and it's okay. It's a weight
It's like
off.
hitting a bad note. The idea is like there's a lot of musicians say there are no bad notes. So in jazz, there's an idea of like, if you're in a jazz fusion outfit and you're on stage and you hit a note that might be perceived as a bad note, you take it as an opportunity, you change the song, you evolve the song.
Mm-hmm.
Now the crowd might not
Mm.
even know you hit the bad note because of how you reacted. And that's how
Mm.
you can deal with like life. You can take a perceived bad note and riff off of it. But if you have to start and stop and people see you start and stop and say, "Oh, I made the mistake. Oh, I'm sorry." You apologize. It's like you're profuse. You're like, oh, you're like, no, you're not actually handling that moment
Mm-hmm.
because you're drawing so much attention. Everybody now knows you made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Because and instead of actually riffing off of it and going forward, you're kind of you're so anxious about what you're saying, you're not actually accepting what is. And that, it's not everything. You're like, okay, you can make mistakes, you can live, but you can live life from your errors or
Mm-hmm.
the things you do. You're always gonna progress, and you're never perfect. You're not gonna be done until you're done, until you're not here. There's always
Mm-hmm.
room for improvement. And so it
Mm-hmm.
is not, you shouldn't be in fear of that. You should just try to just take every step as it comes and not be so anxious about it.
Mm. It's funny, like to bring it back to Rageheart, like, and what I'm trying to do with it, teach this stuff to people. Like I don't just be completely blunt. Like I don't have like a formal certificate. I haven't done it. Like I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychologist. Never went to university. Dropped out of high school. I haven't done like some certificate in somatic anything. Um, and so coming into this, I'm like, this shit is amazing, but I don't have the formal qualifications to justify this. And so I'd, for a while, I still get it sometimes. Like I'd worry, like, oh, I don't know if I should do this. Like I don't have the fucking right credentials, blah, blah,
Mm,
blah. And then it's like what you're talking about. So like I get it with writing. The Rageheart's a lot of writing, trying to communicate and explain these things to people. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I get caught up. I've got to explain it the right way, or what if I say the wrong thing, or I get a little bit off, or I send someone off in the wrong direction. And at some point, I'm like, man, if I wait until this is perfect, and if I wait until I'm perfectly ready and I'll never make any mistakes, I'm never going to do it. And all those people, so I've got people now coming in, they love it. All those people who I could have helped are going to miss out. So I just need to start and I need to do this thing and get it out there. And I'm not understanding that I'm not perfect. I'm going to get it wrong. I'm not going to explain things perfectly. I'm going to make mistakes and say the wrong thing and all of that and doing it anyway. And then it's like you evolve along the way. But if I wait until I wait until I'm ready, whatever that means, I'll never happen. Like it never happens.
it's
Um,
like an artist that has a lot of paintings in their loft, and their friend comes in here and they say, "You had a gallery show," and he said, "No, I'm not ready." You see 100 pieces in the loft, and you're like, "You look like you're ready to me,"
uh-huh.
but if you don't believe
Mm,
you're ready, you're not ready. So I've run into a lot of artistic people that they have that problem. They got
mhm,
that 100 paintings in the loft that they never put in the gallery. They got the poems they could read at the poetry jam, but they don't think they're good enough.
mhm,
But they could. There are people that have confidence and maybe don't have the work that's at the level of your work, and they have the confidence to go out there. I mean, there's a lot of
mhm,
musicians that'll say, like I know there's a lot of guys better than me, but I was willing to go on the stage, and they weren't because they
mhm,
weren't. They said they weren't ready. There was how many of these people they went on the stage, and there's so many other people that could have done it, but they're like, "Well, I'm not ready. I'm not ready," and so it applies. applies in life a lot. It's like you just have to kind of get the gumption to show up. If you
Mhm.
show up, things will happen. It's like the law of attraction. There are going to be people that won't like it, but there are going to be people who dig it, that
Mhm.
understand it, and they click with you. And then nothing's going to happen with the law of attraction if you stay in your room and
Mhm.
you never show it, you never
Mhm.
present it. Like that's not going to
Mhm.
happen.
Mhm. And part of it's like with Rageheart, sometimes I'll worry about, oh, am I treading on someone's toes? Someone more formal with more certifications one day going to get upset with me because I'm not qualified or whatever. Or someone who just, I get people who complain about, I talk about meditation. I make fun of meditation quite a bit, and it pushes some people's buttons, and they get upset with me. And
Triggered.
yeah, and I do it to stir the pot a little bit. It's a bit of it's marketing, a bit of it's just having a laugh, having some fun, and part of it's like being willing to like doing it anyway, knowing that some people are not going to like it. They're not. They're going to hate me. They're going to get upset with me. They're not going to resonate. And like even one thing I've tried to do, and this is the marketing thing. You do this in music too, but like intentionally sort of design. That's why I talk about unleashing the beast, or like I'm trying to bring like a more masculine flavor to the whole thing, and in a way do it quite in a polarizing way. So it's like the people who
Mhm.
don't like it, don't like me, doesn't know. They're like, man, this is so not for me. I hate this guy. I'm out of here. I'm gonna go meditate. I'm like, cool, great, you do you. And so but really, it's back to that thing of like being comfortable with rejection or with people who don't like you, with people who get upset with you. And I mean, I always think back to a quote. I don't know who said it. I think I heard it from Tim Ferriss. Something about how like if you're not pissing anyone off, or if no one's upset with you, you're probably not doing much. You're probably not
Yeah.
doing anything significant if everyone fucking loves you.
Yeah. I mean, it's the whole thing. If you think about people who challenge the canon, like, that's the whole thing. If the challenge the canon, because, like, I went to these, a liberal arts school, and there's people within certain canons within like the art world. And they're like, you get the Longfellow canon, you get the Blake canon, you get Rembrandt, you get all these people. Like, and so if you challenge something, they say, well, that's not right. Yeah, you'll get people that say, well, like if you think about Hendrix, when he showed up, feedback was not something you're supposed to put on record. You're not supposed to
Mm,
actually commit that to tape. It's an error. It's a mistake. But he kept on pushing the recording engineers not to take it out. And there are people that that would have been like weaker in their constitution that would have said, okay, the engineer knows what he's doing. So I'll let him take it out. Well, if Hendrix had let those engineers take it out, people wouldn't know who he is. Right. So that's the thing. There's going to be people and people who are so-called experts that will tell you that you're wrong. And it
mhm,
happens all the time. But it's like you just gotta be, stick to your gut, your guns, and it's like, hey, I feel I have a right to be here and say something.
mhm,
And that's where I think the imposter syndrome stops so many people from doing that. And
mhm,
anything I could say to get people to get beyond that is like, 'cause I like to hear people who are in that kind of underground. That's what this whole show has been about, is to bring people who have not been heard out, because I'm not just talking about the people in the canon. I want to bring people
mhm,
out who have a different point of view. And so that's where what I'm all about. And there's nothing wrong with speaking your voice.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, like I've seen it with this, somatics. That's sort of the field of it, working with the nervous system. What I'm doing with Rage Heart, like in some ways, it's like similar to meditation, but it's so the tiny little differences, like having feedback in a going from no feedback to feedback. These small changes make a world of difference in the result. But I've seen people who are really, they love the meditation. They're I got one friend, he's a therapist, and he's all about mindfulness and meditation, all that. And I guess it's worked well for him in some ways, but I can see that there is this clinging to like an old way or my way. Like this is very challenging to accept that maybe there's a better way. And it's funny watching
Alternatively.
like the old guard. Yeah, it's like, how dare you question this 3,000-year-old tradition? I'm like, man, just because it's been around a few thousand years doesn't mean we can't make some improvements. Um,
Yeah. It's like science. I mean, how many theories get overturned? How many concepts of where you can't go? There's all these laws in science that if eventually somebody finds out, oh, you can do this.
Mhm.
So the law can be broken as research goes forward. You find new things that you didn't realize were true. And
Right.
so I'm in the science because I do a lot of design with systems. And I started back in the day on mainframes, and we could only do zeros and ones and very limited code. Didn't have a lot of, so we had to be very elegant in what our code was because we only had so much room. Now memory is not a problem, so we can be kind of inelegant. And so, like, one of the things that we found is like the old school programmers had to be very concise in what they were trying to do, and because they only had so much room to do it, they have these really elegant ways that they figured things out. But now you have all this unlimited space, you don't have to be as elegant. But one of those things that was cool about that was like the systems that went to Mars. I mean, not the space program had this. The spaceships only had so much room for the code, and they had to design code that would work in that limited space, and it worked. And today we have this unlimited space, so you can introduce all kinds of problems when you don't have constraints and you don't push the constraints. It's just an interesting thing that you can get into, but um
Mm.
I just think that people don't understand, like, sometimes the boundaries cause you to be, push at them, and there's nothing wrong with people on the bleeding edge pushing
Mhm.
at something that, don't disrupt the canon is not like, heresy.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like challenging things a little bit, pushing. Like, let's find out. Like, let's like I think about it like meditation's a technology. All these things are. We can look at them all as code or technology or an algorithm, and I'm like, so you got meditation, which is cool, but let's see, well, what happens if we bring in the science of the nervous system? It's like we start to innovate. We go, okay, we have a practice of being present, but then okay, well, now we understand safety. Okay, well, that's interesting. Okay, well, now we start to bring in these other elements, then it starts to evolve. And what was, in the past, meditating in a cave might have been really useful when you had a really simple life. We have very different lives. We, work 40, I don't know, people work throughout the whole week. We live in a digital world. We're on social media. Like, our lives are very, very different. And so it makes sense to get these tools and to innovate, to improve them, to optimize them, to design them with our new, greater understanding of how our bodies and minds work, and to get better results. Um,
But I
it's
think the
funny
idea,
too.
yeah, I mean, the thing about rage, well, I was thinking about one of your questions, like healthy aggression. Some people are so, like, adverse to, like, aggression is like it's negative. So they just want to suppress it and just get into these kind of mindsets where it's kind of like hippie mindset, whereas like everything has to be like peaceful, everything has to be like, well, sometimes the human emotion is like one thing. As an artist, is like I challenge that kind of thing where I'll go into something that's kind of aggressive, like, like a Nine
Mm-hmm.
Inch Nails, like a punk aesthetic, where
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the anger is necessary because there is a problem. And as an artist, that being able to express rage at like an injustice, and then have that represented in the notes or in the song, it's not always going to be some beautiful piece of melody. Sometimes it might be
Mm-hmm.
discordant, it might be jarring, because it's needed. You need to
Mm-hmm.
jar people into consciousness, because they might be into a place where they're like, oh, I just want to kind of chill out. Well, sometimes, like, you don't need to chill out. So maybe you can talk about like healthy aggression.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example if you want to talk about the difference between Rageheart, somatics, and meditation. Is, meditation be like, oh, if you're angry, just be with it, just breathe, just watch it. It's very just, sit there, take your deep breaths. Like it's very passive. It's very, you're just watching it. You're not getting involved with it. You're not really expressing anything. So that's meditation. And and often anger gets a really bad rap where it's like, don't be angry. Anger isn't spiritual. If you're angry, you're clearly not enlightened. You're clearly not spiritual. It has that flavor to it. And then on the other side, you have, Raychard somatics, this nervous system world. And with that understanding comes, okay, we're mammals, right? Like cats, dogs, tigers, all of that. We're mammals. And if you watch cats or dogs, like, I got two cats. Sometimes we have a dog here who stays here. And like, a dog is a classic example. He's got his food bowl. And if another animal goes near that, he starts like his teeth, you'd be like he'll raise his upper lip, he starts to snarl, he starts to growl, his eyes start to narrow. Like, so what's happening is like this fight response is starting to activate, which is like a sense of boundaries, because he's basically saying, this is my food, not yours. And if you go for it, I'm going to attack you. So it's a way to assert a boundary. That's what the anger is really for. And so it's not just like he's not thinking about it. He's like, it's embodied. He growls, he bares his teeth, his eyes narrow to focus on the threat. His muscles tense and prepare for action. So it's not just like a mental, I'm pissed off. It's like a physiological, it's all through the body. And so what happens is, and I was like this before I got into this, if you asked me, hey, John, are you an angry person? I'd be like, no, I'm just not really an angry guy. Sometimes when I'm driving maybe, but I just don't really get angry. And then through this work, there has been times when you learn some of the tools, and then sometimes these, I'd say, charges or things can start to move through the body where it really is like being an animal again. And I'm growling and I'm snarling and I'm beating my chest, and it's very organic and very authentic, and it feels fucking amazing. And I think so often what happens is people push this down because it's not safe, it's not cool, it's not spiritual, it's not socially approved. But when this happens, when the anger is blocked, that's how we assert boundaries. It's how we protect ourselves in some ways. And so if that's blocked, we're not going to have that ability to stand up for ourselves, to do, to say what we want to say or to do what we want to do. Like an element of it is with motivation and getting up and taking charge of our lives is an element of that. It's the same kind of energy, that get up and go energy. And, mine was very suppressed, I think, because as a kid, whenever I'd expressed that element of things, I think I got shamed into silence because my parents, one of my parents especially, really didn't like it. He triggered him, so he shut me down with his various gambits. And so I learned, okay, it's not okay to feel angry. So I pushed that down out of my awareness and came to believe that I was just not an angry person. And so then healthy aggression, instead of thinking of like aggression as bad, that there is this healthy aspect to it where, like with cats, dogs, it needs to be unblocked. And so then it can do what it's designed to do, which is to protect ourselves, to give us motivation to go after what we want. So you have two extremes with it, though. If it's blocked, it can either be, it's almost like it can either be completely suppressed, like, and that was me, like I'm just not an angry person, or you have the other extreme where someone's completely out of control with their anger and throwing shit at the wall and plates, and maybe they're abusive and violent with their family. Mm-hmm. And so working with healthy aggression is learning to create space for it to start to come up, and they can start to release and start to come, would say, into more balance. So it's not like extreme on one side and it's not completely non-existent on the other side. That's really what the healthy aggression work is about. And just as one example, those people in Thailand where I did the mushrooms and the abusive, manipulative coaches, like, I think the reason I got caught up with them is because this was blocked. I had a funny feeling about them before I worked with them, and there were things they would say when I could feel that, like I could feel this, like the aggression start to activate. But I'd learned through my childhood, I think, to push that away. Don't feel that. It's not okay. And so when I started to get in touch with all this stuff, it's like, oh, my body's telling me. I don't need to think about it. My body, especially with anger, I think will pick up when someone's messing with me, trying to manipulate me. When someone's not safe to be around, my body, I'll feel it. Sometimes as anger, sometimes as fear, long before I start to recognize it in my head and have a thought to understand it intellectually. And so, so that's the healthy aggression work.
It's like that vibe, you can kind of feel a vibe if somebody has like that, the best like intentions, you can kind of feel if somebody's not authentic. And then you see if somebody's being like, destructive toward, doing something that's like not positive, like, and then also triggering. And if you find ways, like, well, I'm not going to get into a road rage incident right now because that's not appropriate in like polite society. But when you learn how to, express your anger in positive ways through like art or through exercise, or finding a place where you can actually dive into it and figure out where you don't push it down, but you use it. Like as an artist, I can use it. I can, like an actor, they can use it in their performance. Like a method actor can take it and then kind of channel it. A painter can take it and channel it. Or, a musician, we can take it and kind of like the power chords that sound like, the Clash or the Sex Pistols, sound like Guns N' Roses, like a Led Zeppelin, like it's kind of angry powers. Like, where's that coming from? He's kind of
Mhm.
kind of taking that kind of motivation and learning how to artistically represent it. You can
Mhm.
see the crowds kind of get into it. People like start gnashing their teeth. They start jumping up and down. Like, why? You hit a frequency. You hit a
Mhm.
frequency that's triggering like this kind of thing, inherent thing that's in your human body, that you are an animal and it will trigger that animal kind of response. And as
Mhm.
musicians, we can see it, we can trigger it, we can
Mhm.
get somebody into it, we can pull them back, or we can
Mhm.
keep them in, keep them going.
Mhm. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's a beautiful thing about music, like you just had different music for different emotions, and how the music. Like I remember, when I broke up with my last girlfriend, and like when I could sense like some sadness starting to roll, I feel like, oh, okay, I could just feel a bit tense. I'd go sit down somewhere, put on some sad like love songs, and just
Yeah.
cry for an hour, an hour. I just it was great. I was so sad and so heartbroken, and yet it was beautiful, and the music was such a like it just I don't know. It's just like the music just opened up that portal. That was sadness. You got angry songs. Yeah, that's one of the beautiful, beautiful
Frequencies, because
things
I mean,
about
your
music.
heart is running a frequency. You have
Hmm.
electricity running to your body. As a musician, I'm into waveforms because I'm into synthesis. Well, every instrument makes waveforms, but as a
Hmm.
synthesizer, we have oscilloscopes and we can see it. So we
Hmm.
can see our waveforms, and then we can see how people behave when we use certain types of waves that
Hmm.
have like dissonance or a really guttural sound, and we can see the response that people get, like in a mosh pit, like the grunge kid. They'll
Hmm.
get in that mosh pit, they're jumping around. It's like, well, why? Because you're doing
Hmm.
something that kind of triggers that. You
Hmm.
trigger that emotion. You can kind of have it happen on command, and you're
Hmm.
like, wow, you actually can tap into that vibe. And when you realize that that's there, like, well, that's there. You could actually tap into that talking. You could tap into that with your feeling. You could do nonverbal communication. If you've got that kind of thing in your head, you can actually still feel that energy, whether you say it or not. You can see it through somebody's eyes. You can see it in their look. You can feel it. Like it's a known thing. It's out there. And
Hmm.
once you start to realize that that's out there, then you can start to understand it's in you, it's in other people, it's out in the universe. And I think that's just just learning about how this energy is transmitting everywhere is
Hmm.
it's something that is part of what I do. But I've talked to a lot of
Hmm.
energy work people that kind of pick up on it, and they're like, oh yeah, there's a parallel there.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. Like, so I'm here in Peru in South America doing, working with ayahuasca and San Pedro and various plants, plant medicine, psychedelics, and ayahuasca especially, uni, some people call it here. Um, so when I drink here, we'll sit in. There'll be six, seven, eight people in the room, and then two maestros. So shamans, maestros, people running it. And part of the way they work is singing. So they'll sit down in front of you. You take, you're on ayahuasca, some varying, I mean, all kinds of states, but they'll sit down in front of you and look at you, smoke a mapacho. This is like a ceremonial tobacco, you know, start to look at you, and because of the ayahuasca, they can start to see inside your body. Like, okay, where is this stuff? Okay, we need to clean this out here, change this thing, and then they start to sing. And so, apparently, how this works, I haven't gone down this path, learning how to do it myself yet, but apparently, what they're doing is they're as crazy as this sounds. It's like they get out of the way, they're opening themselves up. It's a form of channeling, and so the plants start to sing through them. It's like the plants are taking possession of their body, singing to the
Mhm.
person. And then what they're doing with the songs is moving energy, exactly what you're talking about with this frequency. It's just another way to do it. And so they're singing and they're cleaning this, all this fear and doubt out. Okay, let's get rid of that, and let's bring in all this light and joy and beauty. And so it's just a magical thing to kind of to witness and to feel it, to experience it. What like the song, it's not just a song. The song carries a
Yeah,
frequency, it
like
carries an
wait,
energy.
yeah, it's the
Yeah,
energy. It's the energy that's in the song. It's the
exactly.
waveform
Yeah, yeah,
has
yeah.
energy, and your body is energy. And so,
Uh-huh.
like when you have a shaman or somebody who's like an energy healer, they understand how those waveforms work, and
Mhm.
they understand what they mean at a high
Mhm.
level. and they know how to read them, and they know how to send them, they know how to accept them, they know how to receive them. So it's really cool, and it's a lot of old kind of knowledge that was lost, and some people still have it through oral
Mm-hmm.
tradition or just learning. And it's stuff, when the science is starting to actually, record the there's some of this old stuff is actually real.
Mm-hmm.
Where people
Mm-hmm.
like, used to look at the indigenous people and they're like, oh, that's not real. And then they start looking at, oh, well, maybe it is real. It's like, but like they were looking at it a certain light, kind of, downplaying it, thinking, oh, these people are uncultured, they don't know this. It's like there's a lot of old knowledge that's actually very true. And
Mm-hmm.
people just kind of pushed it down and didn't believe in it. But yeah, I think like now today we can kind of start to look at everything without having these lenses
Mm-hmm.
and start to experience things and find out for ourselves, like, does it work for you or not?
Mm-hmm. Like like oh man, my train of thoughts just floated away. Um, I don't know. I don't know what I was going to say, but I will say this. When I got to the valley here, the sacred valley here, I remember someone saying, oh no, he told me that someone told him this when he first got here. They're like, welcome to Hogwarts.
Yeah, it's spiritual
Just
as well.
because, well, because like these things, oh, that's what I was going to say is like with the world and how like we, in our society, Western society, we have this very mechanistic, physical view of life. And if you can't see it, God's not real, spirit's not real, all these, you can't see it is not real. And then, what's been happening with me is I've been working with these plants and getting to know these different people and learning about these traditions. And like, I mean, there's a lot of bullshit around too, to be fair. There's a lot of stuff that I don't think
Yeah,
is
yeah,
true. Yeah. But there's still certainly like an element of like the fact that a song, like that someone can sing to me and then change things in my body without touching me at all with a song is like, what? Like, how does
Hogwarts,
that work?
yeah,
Like, I mean, like it makes sense
wizardry,
now. Like, I get it,
yeah,
but it's so outside the world that the average person in the Western world lives in. It's just like, But then I bring in like the nervous system aspect to it, where you talk about co-regulating. So it's where when if I'm upset and you're really calm and we hang out and chat, and you're able to stay calm, I'll start to calm down because it's like our systems start to co-regulate. So
yeah,
if I'm up
regulate
here, you're
better.
down here, yeah, we
Yeah,
start to come in. And so I think a lot of that can be conveyed, like you said, through the voice. Because if I'm really stressed out and talking really fast and all upset and that comes through in how I'm communicating. If I start to talk really chill, like I'm really relaxed, you start to feel it. People are, it's like that, exactly what you're saying. Like so there is a scientific explanation for this, or a way to, like, we're all
yeah,
picking up on each other's moods, where we're at emotionally and energetically in our nervous system. And that's really, to me, that's why this work is so, so important, because I think as each person does this, and however they do that, whether it's through, music and walking in the woods or whatever it happens to be, as we become more regulated, is the nervous system word, but calmer, happier, healthier, more whole, and we feel that peace and that joy, it ripples out to the world, all the people around us, And then instead of creating destruction and pain and sorrow everywhere we go, we start creating joy and beauty, and it just this ripple effect. And so that's really Rageheart, is like, change, give this to a few people, a few more people. It's like just the way that ripples out into the world and brings peace, joy, and beauty, all those things, gratitude. It's a beautiful thing.
yeah. I want to thank you again for being on the show, because your perspective is a perspective we really haven't heard that much, because the idea of Rage Heart, it's a kind of a cutting edge idea. But there's a lot of things in the public square that I want to bring to light, and what you brought tonight or today in our conversation is a different aspect of kind of doing this kind of therapy and just kind of working, is like embracing ideas that maybe to some people, like, oh, you trigger something by what you say about um the idea of meditation. It could be a triggering point to somebody that's a big believer in it, but it's always good to challenge your preconceived notions and
Mm.
listen to other voices. And I want to thank you again for being on the show to give us this idea of Rageheart, and I want people to make sure they check out the link and click on it and connect with you further to dive deeper than what we can do in an hour. But I want to thank you again for being on the show. It's been really interesting and informative.
Yeah, thank you, Phantom. This has been it's been fun. This is usually I spend a lot more time talking about Rageheart or the story and stuff. This is more like a riff on music and just being happy and just having a good life. And it's been really fun. It's been different, but also very fun. So thank you for having me on the show, man.
Thank you, and have a great night. And again, we'll be on all the platforms that podcasts are available on by later today, and we'll send you a landing page and some other information for your users, all the links that they can hit, so you can spread that to your audience. But thank you again for being on the show.
Mm-hmm.